My name's Tony Cappelletti, and I guess my survival story started August 8th when I crashed my motorcycle. Me and my brothers all grew up riding quads and dirt bikes and all that. August 8th, I had finished work early that day. I was out hanging out with my brothers. I was with my brother Vito and actually a good friend of ours, Ron, and another friend of ours, Luke. We were riding around all over the place. And then by the end of the night, we were at this place called Shotzi's. It's a pub. And we had dinner there, pretty late dinner. We all decided to go home. So one of our friends went one way, he left, and then me and my brother Vito took Luke back to his house on the back roads of Poughkeepsie, a heavily wooded area, windy roads, again, 11 o'clock at night, dark outside, and we're riding on these windy back roads that I grew up on, actually. I know the roads very well, but, it was dark. I'm coming down this road, and I thought I was on a straighter part of the road than I was. I must have remembered the road wrong, and it wasn't very well lit, so I'm hammering it. First gear, second gear, third gear, and I'm going pretty fast, maybe 50, 60 miles an hour. And by the time I realized it was too late, but I was on about maybe a 90-degree turn. So I tried to take the turn, didn't make it, ended up going off the opposite side of the road. I hit a huge rock formation that was, 10 feet tall, 10 feet wide. And I believe what happened is my leg was crushed between my motorcycle, big motorcycle, and the rock wall. From my brother's perspective, he said I hit the rock wall and I just flew into the air. He said I did like 5 front flips and I hit wires on the telephone wires. He said I hit those and he thought I was dead instantly. So he was, pretty devastated. I hit those, I'm flying through the air, and then I landed on my back. And I remember it very clearly because although it was a pretty bad accident, somehow I didn't hit my head or anything else. So I actually remember I went like this and I checked and I was like, oh my God, I'm perfectly fine. My helmet was missing, but I was like, oh, I'm okay, I'm fine. And then I went to stand up and I fell over and I probably tried to stand up again, and then I saw my foot and it was mangled. It was hanging on by skin. I remember seeing like the bottom of my foot. So my brother, he parked his motorcycle and he ran up and he started screaming and he was like, lay down, just lay down. And he ripped my belt off of me and he assessed the situation, tourniqueted my leg. He actually saved my life. Thank God he was there. Shortly after we crashed, he stopped my leg from bleeding and a car came by. And thank God they did. They called 911 for us. An ambulance was there within maybe 12, 15 minutes. The ambulance picked me up and I remember, I'm like, oh man, this is really happening. It was starting to hit me and I'm looking at my foot and I'm like, that's probably gone. I don't think they're going to be able to save that. But I remember asking the guy anyway. I was like, do you think you're going to be able to save that? And he wasn't answering me. So I was like, understood. And then I remember, they put me in the paramedics. They took me down the road to another main road where I live, 44, and they picked me up in a helicopter and flew me to Westchester. And the last thing I remember from that moment was just kind of looking at my foot, and I could see it. It was white, pale, and it was, I knew it was gone, and then I kind of faded out. They gave me meds of some sort to deal with the pain. And then the next memory I have, which was kind of like a fever dream. I don't know how much of it I really remember and how much of it was just someone telling me, but I woke up in the hospital and the doctor was asking for permission to operate. I just remember being in immense pain. The pain had finally hit me at that point, like really set in. And I was just like kind of yelling, like, just cut it off, because it was so painful. And then, they brought me to surgery. They did the surgery. I woke up the next morning and I was, fine, believe it or not. I did have to get 7 different surgeries while I was in the hospital. I ended up staying in the hospital for about a half a month to maybe 3 weeks. They had to do multiple surgeries. So they initially cut down at I keep this because I think I'm funny. They initially cut it like right here, and then they had to keep going up and up and up and up and up. And now I'm like all the way up to here because it was so bad. It was so dirty and mangled from being in the woods. After the 7 surgeries, within, a month or so after that, I was released from the hospital. I had an incredible support group. My brother actually, while I was in the hospital, started a GoFundMe and raised like $80,000 in a couple months. And so, I've always been, I would say I'm somewhat stoic, mentally strong. People were freaking out over the fact that it happened to me, and I kind of just accepted it right away. I was okay with it. I was just happy that I was still alive in the beginning. I was making jokes right away. I've always been a jokester my whole life. I remember my mom came to the hospital and she's freaking out, sobbing. And so I was like laying in my hospital bed and I'm like, Mom, come here. And she's like, what? And I said, go home and go in my sock drawer and throw out all my left sock. And she was like, I took it well, but I say that to say this, the outpour of support that I received was overwhelming. I never felt so much love and felt like I was appreciated so much in my entire life. It kind of sucks that something bad like that had to happen for me to have a greater understanding of who I am to others in my life, but I'm grateful it happened. Actually, as crazy as it sounds, I wouldn't ever change it. I would never go back and not have that accident. I'm very grateful for the person it turned me into. One, I have a greater understanding of who I have around me, who really truly supports me, how much love and support I have from the people around me. And two, I have a much greater appreciation for life. You get a much greater perspective of what is important and what's not important when you're on the side of the road bleeding to death. I'm grateful for that because I started living my life through gratitude, just being grateful for everything I have and all the people around me. And for some reason, my life just got way better. I now, within 4 short years, because this happened August 8th, 2020, so we just passed my 4-year anniversary. But within that short 4 years, I'm married, I have a daughter, I've been saved, and I run a sales team for a solar company. I'm doing the best I've ever done in my life. Things are going really, really, really well. I attribute all of that to gratitude because I could have went down two paths. I could have went the woe is me way. And I think if I did, I never would have excelled in any way. I would probably be stuck in a bed somewhere just complaining about, oh man, my life is so tragic. But instead, I just chose to be grateful for what I still have. And now I have much more. Going back to, being grateful and how my life has changed, I also, when I joined this solar company, the manager of my team and I really became very good friends. He's an incredible young man, very successful for his age, and actually not even for his age anymore. He's just a very successful guy. He's like 24 years old. My best friend, I don't even know his age, don't care. But him and I actually decided to start a podcast, and it's called Two Dudes, Three Legs, and you can imagine why. The podcast gained some popularity. We were having a lot of fun with it, and then we decided to use it for a good cause. And I started working with a charitable organization called Less Leg, More Heart, as well as another one called Giveability. And we did a round of raising money for amputees, and somehow we raised like $30,000 in like a month, most of it in one day. I think we did $20,000 in one day, which was just nuts. And so what we decided to do is I became very good friends with this gentleman who owns a company that builds blade legs, right? So have you ever seen an amputee running and how they don't run on a foot? It's just a blade with a pad on it. So those are extremely expensive. And when you have to get them in the United States, you have to go through your insurance carrier and you have to jump through hoops to get those. It's actually very hard. So this very smart gentleman named Lasse Madsen out of Denmark started his own company called Levitate, and they make blade legs at an affordable price point so that the everyday person can just go buy one. They make them for about $2,000 a piece. So I partnered up with him and Less Leg, More Heart, and we purchased a bunch of those legs. And he would always have these events where he would invite people to come out, amputees, and try on the blade legs. This way they could try them on before they had to go spend $2,000. So he would have those events and people would come in and try them on, and Zach and I would go and we'd film the whole thing, and then people would try them on, and if we found someone who couldn't afford one or something, we'd take them aside and film them, ask them questions, shoot a little podcast with them, and at the end, we would purchase them one and send them home with. And so we recorded that. I don't know, we probably gave away 10 or 12 of those, something like that. That was also a very awesome part, was not only being able to make a comeback, but also to go out and help other amputees. we have our own podcast. I have Less Leg, More Heart. I'll send you their info. So if anyone wants to donate and be part of giving blade legs out, we still do it. It's, it hasn't been the top of my list of things to do. We used to travel everywhere. I mean, we went to Texas to give some out. We went to Colorado. I had a double amputee out there when we gave her 2 blade legs. And all of this is online as well. You can watch the videos of us doing all of this. And so I think my issue was riding overconfidently was one. And then 2 is it was a huge motorcycle. I think it was like maybe like a 1600 cc, which is a pretty big size motor. And I'm not a huge guy. I'm 5'4", 180 pounds on my best day. So I think people get caught up doing that a lot, especially in this area where I live. I remember that summer it was like COVID and there was people dying on motorcycles left and right. People just don't realize how dangerous those things are. I hate to even say that because I'm not that guy. If you like something, whether it's dangerous or not, do whatever you want. I would never tell someone not to. I would say it's a little too common that these types of things are happening. You don't realize how dangerous they are until it's too late. So like I said, I grew up riding recreational vehicles. I won't ride anything with 2 wheels anymore. I've never crashed a car. I've never crashed a quad. I've never crashed any vehicle. It was the one accident I was ever in. And additional to that, my uncle lost his right leg on a motorcycle. My brother broke his spine on a motorcycle. My family just has terrible luck with 2 wheels. I think overall, people have bad luck with 2 wheels. But I did go and buy a very fast quad shortly after, like a 4-wheeler. I went and bought a nice one of those because I won't hurt myself on that. It's, I stay in the woods. I don't go crazy on it. Actually, I haven't even ridden it this year. So I don't want to change the way that I live my life. I want to continue living as I did. And for the most part, I have. I actually even, I never used to run before. I didn't care about running, but I was an extremely active person. I thought I was a ninja for the first half of my life. I would, run up walls and do backflips, and I was like a gymnast outside of the gym. But now that I couldn't run, of course, my best friend, Zach, who I was telling you about earlier, who I have the podcast with, he wanted to run a marathon down in Texas. I think it was Houston, Texas. And they had a 5K. And obviously I had one of those blade legs from Lasse. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I actually ran a 5K about 2 years ago for the first time. And it was pretty cool. Painful as hell, but I got it done. Me and my brothers love getting our thrills. We like shooting, driving fast vehicles, being reckless. It always has been how we bonded. But yeah, there's definitely something addictive to the thrill of, getting on a vehicle that's just built for speed and loud and makes you feel really alive. I don't know why being close to death makes you feel the most alive, but for some reason it does. I think that's what landed me here. I mean, I wasn't keeping up with anyone. I think I blew by my brother right before I got in the accident. I just passed him because I was, feeling it. I was enjoying the adrenaline, and we're riding on back roads at night. You can barely see, there's no one else out there. It's a warm summer night, and I just wanted to pull on the throttle, I remember going off the road very briefly and thinking to myself, well, I don't remember exactly what's in front of me at this part of the road, but I'm either going to go safely into a ditch and just scratch the hell out of my motorcycle, or I'm about to hit something. And I hit something. That part, I don't have great memory of, but I'll tell you what I do remember. I was, again, warm summer night, just still new to this awesome motorcycle that I purchased. Love it. It's loud. I'm wearing, I don't even think I was wearing a full shirt. I probably had like a shirt with my sleeves cut off, just, hammering on the throttle, loving the sound, the feeling, my adrenaline is up. And then I realize, oh, wow, I am going way too fast for this turn that I just realized is right here. Try to take the turn. I thought for a second I'd be able to make the turn, didn't hit the turn. Part of the mistake I made was when I came down to take the turn, I hit the front brake to slow down. And an experienced rider knows that when you hit the front brake, it actually straightens your motorcycle back up. And so that was a major mistake I made. And then it's, I hit the brake, it straightened the bike back up, and that's what sent me right across the other side of the road. And again, in that moment, I remember thinking, all right, well, can't turn back now. Not sure what's going to happen. Either I'm going to just launch into the woods and again, scratch my motorcycle like crazy and get up and be fine, or I'm about to hit something. And it happened so fast, there wasn't even time for me to process what's next. I hit it's a blur. I don't wake up. I never got knocked out, but once everything settled, I was on my back. Yeah, so I remember when I was laying there on my back, he ran up screaming like, "Don't move, just stay still, don't move." Oddly enough, my uncle crashed his motorcycle and he lost his right leg, and we all know the story. Some gentleman showed up and tourniqueted his leg and saved his life. So my brother came up, jumped right into action. He knew exactly what he had to do. He ripped my belt off, tourniqueted my leg, stopped the bleeding. I was already beginning to start to accept it, right? I saw my foot. I knew what was going on. I didn't get knocked out, so I was extremely coherent. I was in the moment, and I just remember sitting there in silence, just very disappointed in myself. He was like, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay." He kept talking to me and, making sure I was going to be all right. They eventually, like I said, the ambulance came, they took me away. And then I think the most tragic part of this story is what happened to my brother. I tell people this all the time. If I had to go back and do it all again, I'd still rather be in my position than his, because if I had to watch that happen to my little brother, I wouldn't be able to deal with it. And so, after the accident happened, he told me he just stayed there and he was the last person on the scene. The cops were there, they did a report, the fire department was there, they checked everything out. Someone came, picked up the motorcycle, cleaned the whole area, and he just stayed there, and he was in, very bad shape. And then even afterward, once I was done in the hospital, and, for me, it somehow became this big positive thing almost right away. And thanks to him, because he started the GoFundMe. He saved my life, made sure I was okay. When I came out of the hospital, I went to his house and he took care of me. But again, I still think it was harder on him than anybody. He had to watch that happen. And now, take care of his little brother who's mutilated his own body on a motorcycle that everyone in the beginning tried taking blame for it. Like, he used to ride motorcycles. He's the reason I got into motorcycles. And I think he was blaming himself for a lot of it. And I tried telling everyone, like, there's nobody to blame here but me. This is my fault. I did this. But I think it was very, very, very hard on him. I feel terrible that I did that to him. I didn't have any trouble accepting it. I just kind of took to it. All that support I got while I was in the hospital was enough momentum I needed to just get back on track. I knew, because of my uncle, that the technology's there where it's not going to change my life a whole lot. There's going to be an adjustment period, but as long as I'm diligent and I do what I got to do, I'm going to be all right. So, I did the physical therapy. I went over the top. I went to the gym. I took my rest when I needed it. Thanks again to my brother, I had the financial security to, take my time to get back to square one. I didn't really have trouble with it. Even physically, the healing, the surgeon I had was an excellent surgeon. He's a young guy. I think he was like 30 years old, Dr. Adam Shaner. He did a great job on my leg. I remember the first day they fitted me for a new prosthesis. They made like a fake one that I could try on, and I was walking immediately. And then as time progressed, I eventually put on a blade leg and I was able to run again. And just now I'm resuming life as normal, actually better. I'm a much better person now than I was before. That I was kind of living aimlessly. But this has given me, a new reason to live and a new appreciation for life. Yeah, so I actually remember when I was younger, I came home from school one day and my father brought me into his room and he's like, "We got to talk," which is weird because we're an Italian family. I'm one of 5 boys. So there was no talking. If I did something wrong, it was, watch out. So I was like, this is strange. What's going on here? And he brought me in his room and he said, "Look, your uncle has been in a motorcycle accident and he's in the hospital right now. He lost his leg." And I just remember being like, what is going on? Like, we never had anything like that happen in our family. I never heard of anyone getting hurt, crashing a vehicle. He recovered and he still owns and rides the same motorcycle that he crashed. He's mechanically inclined. He's actually good at everything he does. I don't know what his deal is. He still lives his life just like, normal. And his was much worse. He lost his right leg all the way up to his thigh pretty much. Knowing what he went through, it helped me prepare for what I was going to go through. There was a couple months where I couldn't get out of bed because my leg had to heal, but great. I stayed home. I read books. I watched movies. Like, who doesn't want to hang out at home for a month? You don't get that opportunity in the regular world. And I had everything, I've always saved money. I've been good with my own money. And then on top of that, my brother got me a GoFundMe. I had a vacation. I didn't care, and you know what? I think what really helped me was just my attitude toward things. So I've always been an extremely positive person, but the reason I think I'm able to take things on the chin a little better now is because when I was probably 16 years old, my father was diagnosed with ALS. And ALS is a vicious, vicious disease. My father was a, 6-foot Italian, loud, loved to talk and eat. That was his thing. His name was Vito. And ALS killed him slowly for 6 years. And the first thing he lost was his ability to talk and eat. It's a neurodegenerative disease, and it eats at your muscles. So the first thing he lost was in this area, and then it slowly ate everything away from him until he couldn't breathe anymore physically. And he died slowly for 16 years, and I never heard that man complain once. And so, I lost my foot. Who cares? He lost everything, and he never complained once. No matter what happens to you in this world, you can always look at it, one of two ways. You can be upset that, oh my God, why did this happen to me? Or you can just be grateful